Hello everyone, it has been a long time since I've done a rules video, but it feels really good to get back into it, and I am keen to sink my teeth into explaining the spacecraft rules. Okay, so in this video I'm just going to talk about the spacecraft character sheet, give you a quick overview including creation and non-combat travel and uses for spaceships. In future videos we'll talk about combat. Okay, so we've got here the character sheets. These are standard character ones. You notice they've changed since the previous video. We've updated them, made them a lot better. But the one we'll be looking at is the fourth one here. This is the spacecraft character sheet, and you'll instantly notice a lot of similarities. You've got attributes, you've got weapons that use pretty similar stats, defense and armor, a lot like a character. So the idea is that a lot of this should be familiar, but it's still there's a fair few differences, obviously. So you've got your 6 attributes here. When you build a spaceship, you'll have 18 points to distribute those. So you've got hull, engines, crew, power, CPU, sensors. The last one down here, you've got size. So this dictates the relative size of your spaceship. The average size spaceship in your setting should always be 3. And all spaceships start off at 3. And you can go up to 5 or down to 1 through traits, okay? So you as a GM, you need to dictate what is a size 3 ship in your setting. So say for example you're doing a giant space exploration game with hundreds of crew on your ship, then a size 3 ship could actually be quite large and it could have hundreds of people on it. Or, you know, you could do more of a smaller type game with ships that only have like a few crew or just the party, so an average size ship might only have a crew of 4 to 5 people. You've got down here, you've got some calculated stats down here and here. So you've got defense and armor. These function just like they do with the characters. You've got shields. These function just like endurance, but it's the spaceship version. Then you've got here, you've got cargo. This represents how much cargo space you've got in your ship. Secret cargo space. Kaltoran ships always come with those. I love it. Weapon slots. This dictates how many weapons you have. You can have 1 per your size of your ship. Your ships always have a maximum velocity 6. We'll talk in that later one. Then resupply. So this is the amount of days that your ship has food and fuel before it starts to run low. So if you're traveling off for long distances, you can put food and fuel in to take up cargo space to sort of boost that for particular exploration missions. A lot of the weapons here you'll notice really similar. You've got hit damage, shield damage, and crit damage, just like endurance damage and crit damage, range, clicks, ammo, all the standard stuff here. The difference you do have is because you don't have a weight here, instead you have a thing called mount. And this functions a little bit different because you don't get overburdened with a ship, but instead your ship has a certain mount value and your hull value has to equal it or be higher. So if you take hull damage, that can mean that some of your weapons cannot be used. So if you've got hull 3, a weapon with mount 3, you take 1 hull damage, that weapon cannot be used until that hull is repaired. And that represents taking out weapon systems. So you want weapons to have a low mount. Then down here you've got a little spot where you can draw a layout for your ship, stuff to write with your labs and workshops. And down here you have spacecraft perks. These ones down the right you automatically gain, and these ones down the left you are optional ones, and you get 1 per the size of your ship. And these are things like, for example, a brig or a shuttle or escape pods or extra cargo space, things like that. These are little tweaks that make your ship feel different. And then over here you've got like automatic things like life support, jump drives, docking clamps, airlocks, corridors, rooms, and things like that. So for example, as soon as your ship is, like if it's size 3 to 5, you have corridors. But if you're size 1 to 2, you don't have corridors in your ship. So that's pretty much how that works. I feel like a lot of this is self-explanatory, especially if you know how to build a character. One of the important things within this rule system is dictating what type of ship you're having will set the tone of your game. So if you're going for like a Millennium Falcon style game or a Firefly game where all your crew are in one ship, this character sheet will look the same for each player. They all have the same one. There might be slightly different stats on some of the weapons because maybe they got individual traits, like they're more of a gunner or something like that. But by and large, they'll be basically the same. But if, for example, you're playing a game where everyone's in fighters, they're all each got their own ship, and they're probably going to be size 1 or 2. Then everyone's spaceship sheet's going to look different, and it's really good to sort of capture the scope of the style of game that you're going to have, because good sci-fi, like they alter, they vary. You know, some are big ships with fighter squadrons being shot at, and some you're like a rogue squadron, little elite team going in doing hit and runs, and this has got that flexibility. So the other quick thing that I want to talk about before we end the video is the non-combat uses of spaceships. So on spaceships you have your cargo space, and that's where you can store trade goods for buying and selling to get resources, but it's also where you can install workshops and labs, which are great for doing research, modifying your weapons and things like that. And that helps to give your ship some flavour, you know, determining what workshops you're going to put on, and the more of those you put in, the less cargo space you have for trade. I know in my current game, they have lots of workshops and no trade space because they're not really a merchant type group. But another group could have a lot of cargo space, and that could be really good to doing lots of trade, and sort of so the party could have a lot more money, but they struggle with modifying their weapons and doing research and things like that. Okay, so we're also going to talk about traveling. So this is non-combat traveling. So if you grab the core rulebook, and right near the start, just here, you've got 2 maps. And this is a system map. So this is the example system of Haven with planets and a star, and asteroid belts and things like that. And then you have your sector map, where each of these are individual systems. And then you've got giant nebulas and things like that. Now, the travel time that you've got is your ship gathers in ley energy and uses that energy to power their jump drives and open a portal, but it still takes time to travel through that portal. So on a system map, you've got 1 day travel between each of these blue lines. So 1 day, 1 day, 1 day, 1 day, 1 day, and then even here when they get close, it's still 1 day, 1 day. Okay, so this is not an actual example of spacing between the planets. It's supposed to be quite functional. Then you've got on the sector map is you've got these hexes, and so each hex is 6 days of jump travel. But you'll notice that these ley lines are one giant space, so they act a bit like highways, and you can 6 days to travel from there to there, or if you go off them, 6 days just to travel this small distance into the nebula. Now, to go in and out of a system, you need to be at the outer edge of a system. So when you go into a system, you will appear here, and it will take you time to explore in. And then you've got to go out here to again move around the sector. Now, the reason why I've done this is because exploration, you don't want a flat map. You need stuff that's sort of faster travel routes and slower travel routes. It allows for those sort of darker spaces and unexplored areas to be there. But it also allows fast movement and lots of travel if you want that style of game. So if, for example, you want to stick to the ley lines and just move up and down here, you can move quite quick and travel and visit a lot of systems, okay? These ones are quite easy to sort of visit. But if you want to go out into the deep, dark, like Blackreach Nebula, for example, you'll need to like travel out, and it'll take you a long time, okay? But then you've also got some of these systems. It gives you a different feel, because let's say you're in Haven and you travel down to here, to sort of this system here, you're probably going to see the outer planets. That's probably where people are going to like a bit more congregate, because it's easy to sort of get in and out of the system, but not necessarily many people have traveled all the way in. And so it allows sort of different layers of exploration. Cool. I hope you enjoyed. The next videos will be about combat.